Liberty video 2 had a couple requests for a couple details, so we'll come back. 1980, built February of 80. Chrome bumper conversion, H4 bulb, flat bulb Maxtel headlamps. These are Rota RB 15 by 6 wheels. Amazingly, they're 175 70s, but they're 15s. And they ended up being close to a 190 aspect ratio. And here's the beauty of the bonnet struts. One hand, how easy it is to lift that bonnet, and it goes up all by itself. Got the Airbox done. Made out of Macrolon, machine plate polycarbonate. Good for about 400 degrees. Shouldn't be an issue here. That's actually 1/2 inch thick plexi. So you're looking at an inch of plexi. You're looking through a 1/2 inch to see my Dragon logo engraved in between the carbs. The holes for the carb throats, you notice I've radiused them, so they're mini ram pipes. But that's the only place you really notice the 1/2 inch. You can't even see it behind the bolts here, but it's a 1/2 inch plexi in the front too. It's hard, it ain't going anywhere. Obviously, twin SU, rebuild, conversion, much more power than a single ZS. Changed the direction of the overflow on the radiator fill, ran it down this side to match. Just clean up the plumbing rather than running it down the other side using a single carbon canister. Custom plumbing coming back from the gas tank and routed up here to the breather on the carbs. I've actually added a breather pipe on the carbs. I don't like just having to dump gas on top of these bowls overflow, so I route mine out. Custom breather pipe down, just welded in, made a nice little pipe, same thing here. It comes out fairly clean. Radiator routing. New wiper motor, obviously. Everything that is shiny is basically new. Only a few things got rebuilt, which is my normal route. I just went ahead and replaced everything for a change. GT6 uprights. They look tiny inside those 15-inch wheels. Custom bend my own little brake hoses fixed line. They are stainless steel lines encased in the original plastic coils. Gaz, adjustable perch, coilover shocks with 225 pound springs. Stock would have been about 180, so they're not real rigid, but they're a little stiffer. 1-inch sway bar. Makes the big difference, more so than the coils and the shocks. Custom frame mount, much heavier duty, 1/4-inch plate steel. The bottom U-shaped gold, you can see I had to actually bend myself to fit just right, or fit the way I liked it anyway. Powder coated suspension, it's actually called black chrome. I've used it before. This seems to be a little lighter than before, but no big deal, still pretty. Powder coated the radiator, the fan shrouds. Radiator shroud. Interesting that on a 1980, instead of the wiring running across the top of the frame, everything ran up into the bonnet, came across, and then came back down to get to the turn signal lights, the running lights down in the quarter valance. The gas struts again, you can see simple mount. Drill one hole, the edge of the frame right here actually becomes the captor for the nut to keep it from rotating, makes it easy to mount. These particular setups, yes, I had to drill a hole up a little higher just to mount the bonnet where I like. How do you pick a spot? Leave your original adjuster rod in place and then just put them up there. Scratch a little bit, drill a hole, and you're done. OEM rubber flaps. Scrubbing the inside of a bonnet to paint was a pain, but lay it on its back on carpet or paper towels, whatever, and then scrub it with a brush, it worked. Did pull the windshield out when I was painting, so all new seals, the rope. KY Jelly by a long shot is the best thing I've ever used for putting in the stainless steel trim. In that case, this is not plastic, this is the real stainless steel trim. Stuff will never shrink like the plastic stuff does. Just recently went back and put in the GT6 quarter light windows and side glass in these doors Doors are stamped for it, so they go right in. You just need new winder mechanism, new glass, new quarters. Even these rubber seals on the quarter are completely brand new. I just like them because it holds the window glass up against the rag top a lot better. It's a much better rain seal. Pinstriping down the side matches what my brown 1980 Spit had back in 1980. 3 little gold stripes. I think it looks great with this car color. And just like on the front, gold logos versus silver or black. I think that just looks so much better than the silver does. Adds a little touch of class to the color. What I'm really proud of, homemade exhaust. See if I get a shot, see if the light works. Yeah, you can see it. The XKE mufflers in the back. Custom Y pipe, very long Y, runs up front to a 18-inch resonator. This is all 1 3/4-inch pipe running all the way up to the Euro spec exhaust system. That's the 421 cast iron dual downpipe setup. Works great with the dual carbs. Custom interior on the trunk, or the boot, excuse me. Actually sewed that tire cover myself. Amazingly, found a company of all places, backwoods of Louisiana. This is the same fuzzy carpet material that is inside the car on the molded carpet set. Just doesn't have the rubber backing like the molding. But it's the same material, same density of fuzz, etc. Car already has its own tool bag. Jack fits in the bag. Jack handle's just tucked in underneath. Sideboards, nice and clean. Plug-in wiring up here is actually going up to LED lighting. This is for a trunk pop I haven't wired in yet. But I like carpeting the interior. I throw stuff back here, just treat the whole thing like a suitcase. Works well. Nice solid closure. New rag top, Robins of course. And again, you can see the advantage of having the quarter windows, get some air into the car. Summertime when it's really hot, you turn these things all the way around, force blows air on you. It's built-in AC. You just can't beat it. Interior, usually build my own panels. This time around, I went and just bought the Vicky Britt kit. I gotta admit, folks, the price is high, but it does include the molded carpet kit, a black kit. You'll notice this is tan, directly from Newton Commercial. It's still a molded kit, but it's tan. The center sections, center tunnel and stuff isn't included in the kit. They supply some material, but it's not enough to do everything, so I bought a yard of the biscuit as well. Always rebuild my center armrest. You can see it's a little larger than stock. Yep, even sewed myself a new boot for the brake handle. Difference is this one opens. It gives you a nice bit of storage inside. Kind of fleece lined. It's a good bit of space. Nice solid lid. I put rings behind the speakers to stick them out so I didn't have to worry about clearance from behind. I hated cutting into a brand new back panel, but it worked. And I'm sure you've seen the advertisements for these guys. They work nice. It keeps it in a nice position on your shelf. It's worth it to keep the seat belt where it is. Always stays in front of the seat, no problem finding it. Nice place to mount speakers. Interesting the way I did it, but I won't divulge that right now. You'll have to go to the website later and look it up. The only thing that amazes me is why did they use a black shift boot? But I guess it's just enough black to go with everything else. My center console, 3 gauges, dual pressure temp in the middle, and a voltmeter. The extra light switch is actually the fog lights. It's a 1980 speedometer, or it would have been 80 miles an hour. Pretty dumb. This is a later model, 120 Spit, earlier model from 1975. Yes, the odometer has been reset on this particular instrument. I'm keeping the 1980 in the trunk to match. You can see there's 51, 127. Car hasn't even really been driven to break in the brakes yet. or to bed in the new brake pads. All new veneer on the dash. That's just 8 to 10 coats of clear. No coloring to the wood whatsoever, but the color I think matches great for this car. Door panel fits great. Amazingly, these kit supplied top covers that are on these doors are the same vinyl material of the brand new dash pad that's now in this car. It's not that thin plastic. They fit really well, and just with hair dryer, you can get these things to fit perfectly. They're beautiful. I'm amazed by them. Apparently there's some manufacturers putting out some quality again. The rain rail here actually is felt on the back, so it doesn't get stuck in the window and want to roll down into it as you roll the window down. It works the way you expect it to. They go up, they slide right down, no problem. I'm really, really amazed. The door seals are the same way. This fuzzy is not that cheap metal stuff that's such a pain in the butt to get crimped on. It's actually a rubber U-shaped channel. Metal is buried inside, but it's rubber fingers that bite in, and the gap is much larger and actually fits properly. Went on smoothly and beautifully all the way around. I was really, really impressed. Some vendors, I'm going to have to look at the parts and figure out where I bought this stuff, because it's just stunned that this stuff fits right. Well, not a whole lot more to show. Again, custom sideboards on the engine. They're just made out of hardboard and aluminum from local Lowe's, large box store. Everything in this car worked beautifully. I didn't mess with it. Just an addition I did this evening, this hard line you can see right here is actually my vacuum line for the vacuum, or for the distributor. See, I ran a hard line around, it runs down, runs across the back of the distributor, pops up, nice short hose, so it's clean. Again, it's just out of the way. I think I might put a longer choke cable in, just so both of these run the same path so they're not both floppy. Clean that up a little bit. I'm a stickler. Little things like that make a big difference visually. I really hate using this corrugated plastic stuff, but the way this flex line needs to run up the bonnet, I had retaped the whole harness, and this was a little tight. It wasn't really a nice flexible loop, so the only thing I could do was free up all the wires, put it in that casing, gives it plenty of free flex, so I don't have to worry about flexing the wires and having one break or chafe. All new seals everywhere in the car, obviously. New clutch slave, or clutch master. Brake master was on here, it was in good shape. The differential works properly. Coil works, new heater valve, new solenoid. Oh, I take that back. I did rebuild the washer pump. Those little pumps are pretty durable. They just get jammed up with one little piece of crap and they stop on you. But other than that, turned out pretty well. See if I can get a nice top shot of this engine. Yeah. Here you go. She's nice and clean. It always amazes me how big the carbs and intake manifold make the engine look by comparison. And they're just not that big of a motor, let's face it. But she's nice clean. I'm happy. Spent a lot more than I ever planned to, but I'm not going to complain. She's a very beautiful car, 50,000 original miles. Doesn't have overdrive, but that's not stopping me because I still have physics engine sitting buried under the covers here. And I use that for a model for some of my plumbing, but there's a nice overdrive transmission hanging on the back of that, sitting under the covers. You can see the gold logo, the 1500. That just matches this brown so well. Couldn't be happier with the coloring. Well, there she is, folks. 1980, 51,000 original miles. The only thing that's not new that I didn't paint or touch was the frame. Totally clean, zero rust underneath. Oh, forgot to mention, as well as the GT6 front brakes, this has the Mark III, late Mark III GT6 rear brakes. It's a much larger rear brake hub. Other than that, the axle and everything else is exactly the same. The Mark III GT6 went back to the swing axle, whereas the Rotoflex obviously was a different independent setup, but this is still a swing. These I had built and put on physics before I went to the independent suspension. So now they're on Liberty. So not only are the front larger GT6 brakes, but so are the rears. Any other questions? Guess you can contact me. Bye. Little recap here and a couple corrections after watching the video. You notice the radio tunnel, I actually welded the hole closed with another piece of aluminum and cut it out to fit the DIN box of the radio. So there's no radio plate required. So it's a nice tight fit. It's rigid. You notice the clutch or the choke cable I put underneath. I didn't want to put a hole in the dash because I wasn't sure whether this car is going to get a V6 or not, like my Obi. Up underneath, you see brake pedals. I said tan carpet. It's actually biscuit carpet to match the biscuit interior here. These radio speakers actually have an L bracket welded to the back plate, and it's using the corner of the normal mount bar here up in the side. And then there's a beam that runs across behind the radio to connect the two sides together. So that acts as the backside support. So they're not screwed into the tunnel in any way, shape, or form. I just wanted to get another shot of just how well this molded carpet kit fits and how far up in it goes. I mean, it's up in there. It goes all the way up. I actually had to trim it down to stop where it does up there. Beautiful fit kit. I did add underlayment. If I can even pull this up. Got the nice foam underneath of it, and this entire car has been dynamated to kill the sound. What else in here? I guess that was it inside here. Oh, didn't mention that I do have power door locks in here. So that's what the plastic tube someone asked about. No plastic tube running through, just passes the wires through. And you can see as you open the door, it really doesn't flex much. So it's not like it's a problem. It's a nice heavy vinyl tube, just enough to pass the wires through. Another point I wanted to note, someone that is also remanufacturing these earlier overriders, somebody was making them out of fiberglass for a while. These are heavy plastic. You can see the thickness of the white here, of how thick this is. It's just a cut edge, it's not polished like the rest of it is. But they're semi-flexible. They're not super rigid, not super heavy duty. And they're actually cheaper than what these things had been going for. But I bet you I could probably hit something at 5 miles an hour and not crack them, which is amazing. You can see the grill. It's actually that clip-on U-channel. You want the short stuff, the 5/32, or it hits the vertical beams and it won't lay flat. There's a 9/32 and a 5/32 depth. You buy it by the roll pretty cheap. It's like $5 to do it. Just a nice accent. The 1980 had an open air duct because you're laying the radiator down. So it actually forces the air up into the radiator. You can see the radiator's laying down in there. So yeah, you actually see the frame rail all the way across. The metal plates that stick off the frame, you can see one right there in the center of the picture. Another one over here. They're on all these cars from the late mid-70s on. I never knew what they were for. Well, now I know. It's actually the cutoff of the big rubber bumper overrider bar that goes across this frame rail. If and when I get around to finally putting this whole car up on the website, I'll show pictures of how I had to cut that metal away to do the chrome bumper conversion correctly. The gentleman that had put the chrome bumper on didn't cut all the metal work away, so it didn't clear. But that metal actually came out and then cut up vertically and was mounted. What else was I going to mention about this? I just mentioned the power door locks. I guess that's it. Last shot of my air intake. I'm just so proud of that. It worked out well. That was built on my CNC router table, which is overkill, to say the least, but it made it simple to draw it up and let it cut it out. Do a good job of, and now you can really see the venturi pipe You can see just how thick that plexiglass is. And yet you don't see it in the front. It's an optical illusion because the stuff is so thick. But being a 1/2 inch, the rubber of the seal doesn't quite come to the edges front and rear, so it's not blocking the filter. And these are all pancakes anyway, so it's no different than if I just put 2 pancake filters on here. So it's just a little different. Amazingly, they make boxes like this for the MG Midget and the Sprite. And it wasn't until after I'd already bought this particular K&N filter that I found the Sprite filter. And looking at Google pictures cracked me up because it was my own midget that I saw the picture of. Little Greenie from way back. Google Images had the photo where it's a single flat front plate that spanned 2 round filters. Or excuse me, 1 long big oval filter like that. So I actually found the replacement part number. It's the same oval as this, but it's 2.5 inches deep. Well, the 2.5 inches wouldn't have allowed clearance with the bolts with where the gas strut comes down. It was a little too close. I had maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch of clearance, and to me that's just a little much. So I stayed with my original design and just went with the 1 inch filter, which works out fine. Again, you can see where the fuel line runs around the backside. Heat shields. You can see they're bolted to the back of the manifold. This is already on my website. I had done this on Whitey's engine before it became physics. Makes it easier to remove them, and I didn't have to worry about putting a hole through it for the throat of the carburetor. The exhaust manifold, although the pipe down in there, yeah, you can even see it. The pipe is stainless steel. Manifold, get in here, yeah, there it is. You can see it's bright shiny silver. That's not actually silver, that's actually a ceramic coating. It's a paint that you can buy. You have to bake it at about 500 to 700 degrees, but it ceramic coated the inside and the outside. Now these early cars, or these late 80 Spits, were so detuned and ran so lean, they ran hot. First time I started this thing, that manifold was over 500 degrees. Letting this thing run for an hour or two while tuning it and playing with it, manifold, I never saw a temperature above 300 degrees, 320 degrees, somewhere in that range. So it actually does work, but it's a ceramic coating that should stay nice and shiny and silver for quite some time. Yeah, I know I use nylon bolts. I'm not worried about that. I know they'll break, but they're gold. And they just, nice little gold accents work out well with this brown.